The Art of Seeing Differently. In a small village lived an elderly man named Sato, known for his quiet wisdom and eyes always full of curiosity. Unlike others, Sato didn't try to change the world. He sought to see it in new ways, as if every day was the first time. One day, a young visitor arrived in the village, frustrated because nothing seemed to change in his life. "Master Sato," he said, "I try to improve everything, but I keep getting stuck in the same struggles. How can I move forward?" Sato looked at him calmly and replied, "Sometimes you don't need to change the path you walk. Sometimes it's enough to change the way you see the scenery." The young man frowned, still not understanding. "How can I learn this art of seeing differently?" Sato smiled and said, "Come with me to the river at dawn tomorrow, and I will teach you." The next day, before the sun touched the horizon, Sato and the young man walked together to the river. The water flowed calmly, reflecting the first golden hues of dawn. Sato pointed to a large stone on the riverbank and said, "Look at this stone. What do you see?" The young man replied, "Just an ordinary stone, still and lifeless." Sato nodded slowly and added, "Now, close your eyes and listen to the river." The young man closed his eyes and gradually began to hear the murmur of the water, the distant song of birds, and the wind gently stirring the leaves. Sato continued, "When we open our eyes again, I'll show you that the stone is more than just a stone, and the river is more than just water." The young man still doubted, but he stayed attentive. Sato sat down beside the stone and scooped up a handful of river water, letting it slowly drip over the gray surface. Then he pointed again. "Do you see just a stone now, or something more?" The young man looked closely and noticed that where the water touched, the stone shimmered with a faint glow, as if it were alive beneath the river's touch. Sato said, "This stone is the home of the current that flows through it, a stronghold that supports the movement. It's not just still. It's part of a whole that is constantly in motion." The young man began to understand but still had questions. "How can I apply this in my life, master?" Sato replied, "To learn the art of seeing differently is to realize that nothing is only what it seems. Every difficulty can be an opportunity, every obstacle a teacher in disguise." Sato stood up and began walking slowly along the riverbank. The young man followed, still trying to absorb the words. "Look at that tree," Sato said, pointing to an old willow whose branches bent toward the river. "At first glance, it seems weak because it leans and doesn't fight the wind. But that flexibility is its strength. It adapts, it moves, and it never breaks." The young man looked at the tree and felt an unexpected calm. "So, seeing differently is also learning to accept and adapt?" he asked. "Exactly," Sato replied. "To see differently is to understand that the world isn't rigid or fixed, and our mind can choose whether to fight or to flow." For a moment, they both remained silent, watching the river continue its course, indifferent to the passage of time. The young man took a deep breath and asked sincerely, "Master, how can I train my mind to see differently when everything feels so repetitive and heavy?" Sato smiled gently and replied, "Every morning, before the day begins, pause for a moment. Look at what you always see, but with fresh eyes. Notice the details you usually ignore. Feel the air, listen to the sounds, take in the scents. That sounds simple, but my mind always goes back to the same things," the young man said, a hint of frustration in his voice. "That's natural," Sato said. "Seeing differently is an art learned through patience and practice. It's like a muscle that needs exercise. The more you do it, the easier it becomes." The young man nodded, determined to try. Sato sat down again by the riverbank, letting his fingers gently touch the water. Then he looked at the young man and said, I'll share a secret with you. When we see the world with the same eyes, we lose the magic of the unexpected. But if we learn to look from a different angle, we discover a whole new universe in the everyday. The young man asked, "And how can I find that different angle?" "Change your perspective," Sato replied. "If you always look from above, look down. If you always look from afar, come closer. Observe carefully, without judgment, without expectation." The sun was beginning to rise, painting the river with golden and silver light. For the first time, the young man felt something inside him beginning to change. The young man stood up, a new light shining in his eyes and a sigh that seemed to release years of doubt. "Master, now I understand that the art of seeing differently isn't just a way of looking. It's a way of being. It's a change that begins in the heart, not just the eyes." Sato nodded serenely, his wrinkles softening into a deep smile. "That's right. When you learn to see differently, you free yourself from the prisons of the mind that bind you to suffering and fear. You stop searching outside for what can only be found within." The young man looked at the river once more, watching the water flow effortlessly among the stones, and felt something inside him opening. So, every problem, every challenge, is an opportunity to grow if I see it from another angle. "Exactly," Sato replied. "Life is a constant game of perspectives. And in that game, the true master is you." The young man smiled, feeling a new path unfolding before him, full of possibilities and peace. "Thank you, Master. From today on, I will practice the art of seeing differently, to find something new to learn and something new to be grateful for in every moment." Sato answered, as the sun continued its rise, painting the landscape in warm tones. "Remember, each day is a blank canvas. You only need to change your view to paint a masterpiece. And that art is always within reach of those who seek it with humility and patience." With a light heart and an awakened mind, the young man bid farewell to Sato with a deep bow and began his journey back to the village. Each step he took was a conscious act of presence. He felt the breeze brushing against his skin, heard the distant murmur of the river, and sensed the fresh scent of wet earth. As he walked, the familiar landscape seemed to transform. He no longer saw the same streets or the same houses, but a new world filled with details that had once gone unnoticed. The silent flight of a bird, the texture of leaves beneath his feet, the sparkle of a dewdrop hanging from a spider's web. He realized that true change was not outside, but in the way he chose to see the world. And in that simple choice, he found freedom. Because the art of seeing differently doesn't just transform what surrounds us, but also the soul that observes. A soul that learns to flow, to accept, and to find beauty in every moment. With a serene smile, the young man knew that from this day forward, his life would be an ongoing dance of discovery and gratitude.